Hello, everybody. Welcome to Health, Wealth, and Happiness in the Workplace. Very excited to have all of you here. Wow, we have 33 people here, and the event has not even started yet. We still have 1 minute. Yeah, Ken was saying about how everybody likes to be early here in Hong Kong.
I think I said quite the opposite.
Okay.
Yeah. They're gaining their health, wealth, and happiness right now, apparently.
They're not from Hong Kong.
Yeah, maybe.
All right. So we're really looking forward to this event. But just to kick things off, in the first 5 minutes, we have 3 poll questions, and we've actually already jumped the gun with the first one. So the first poll question is, are you working from home or back in office currently? So everybody please vote on that.
Are you working from home?
Yeah, right now, I'm not.
You're not.
I have a meeting right now.
It's home.
Yeah.
Working from webinar.
I have Daryl's bed like right over there.
Fantastic, right there, right behind the screen. And while we're waiting for this poll, because we have 3 polls in total,
Right.
I want to introduce our fantastic speakers today. First and foremost, we have Melissa Tsang. So Melissa is from Foodpanda.
Hi, everyone.
Right next to Melissa, we have Ken. Ken is from AQUMON. We have Thomas from Happier. We have Ron from LinkedIn. All right, let's go ahead and end this poll and see how many people are working from home and how many people are back into the office. 67%. Oh, actually, let's share results. Kind of jumped the gun there.
Yeah. It's okay. It's okay.
Okay, so right now we have 33% of you working from home and 67%.
Oh, really? Hello from Vietnam.
A little bit.
Hello, Vietnam.
Hello, Vietnam.
That's kind of early.
Yeah.
Okay, next poll question. Actually, let's go to the next one. So we have our corporate production house managing our polling. Thank you, Mr. Ricky. Okay, I'm very excited for this next poll. Question 2. Which of these perks sounds the most appealing? Number 1, we have care packages to lift the mood. Number 2, management buys you lunch and drinks. Number 3, weekly happy hours are hosted. And number 4, extra holidays given. Now we have 51 people in this room.
Right.
You guys can't see these events yet, but one of the answers is kind of blowing up. Right now.
But I want to say, as the resident wealth guy, why isn't there a choice that just management pays you more? That seems kind of more. Just joking.
All right.
That never came to mind.
I was just saying that would probably be my number one choice. Yeah.
You know, actually, one really cool workplace perk that we've gotten recently is our company has bought Sales Navigator for us.
Sales Navigator is a great tool.
Man,
Fabulous. Great choice.
We had a great hour-long training session yesterday, didn't we?
that's exactly it.
Our colleagues are great, aren't they, LinkedIn?
Fantastic. Let's end the polling and see what we came up with. Okay.
I feel like I should have like a drum roll.
The results. Okay, so 21 of you voted extra holidays given. Wow. Okay.
What are people doing with their holidays? Can they try?
Sitting at home,
Sitting at home,
spending time on Sales Navigator,
Ordering
Selling-
Panda.
ordering from
Food,
Foodpanda.
investing on AQUMON.
Investing on AQUMON. One last poll, and then we'll get to kind of our speaker introductions. Okay.
That's surprising, actually.
All right. This is actually my favorite.
But I found out 2 and 3 is also drinking related, so that seems popular as well.
You know what's going on?
Poll question number 3.
Yeah.
Which topic is most interesting to you? Health, wealth, happiness, or the workplace? Once again,
Wow, they're really quick voting.
Exactly.
There's no way workplace is going to lose this one.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to hear more about workplace?
Okay.
If number 4 was the winner, I think we'd all just be like, okay. Yeah.
This is Hong Kong audience.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Let's give it maybe 10 more seconds. 9, 8. Okay.
Kathy isn't wrong about Sales Nav being the best.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's end the polling, Ricky.
I like how we have a hi from Central as well. That's hello from Central. Hello for
Share
us
the
from
results.
Korea Bay.
Happiness is the most important for
Okay.
everybody.
Okay. I mean, that's
Okay. Let's get into the webinar. So we have 3 sections to this webinar today. The first section is we're going to have each of the speakers introduce themselves and talk about what health, wealth, happiness, and the workplace means to them. And then we're going to have a fireside chat where we all interact with each other. And to finish off the webinar, we're going to have a section where we each talk about how we're advocating for health, wealth, and happiness for our clients or our partners. And then we're going to end that off with a question and answer phase. So if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat and we'll get to them in a bit. Okay. Health, wealth, and happiness. What does that look like for you? I'm going to start with Melissa, our head of corporate over at Foodpanda.
Awesome.
Take us away.
Thank you, Daryl. And hi, everyone. We're so excited for this event. Thank you so much for joining. Health, wealth, and happiness. I had a little bit of time to reflect on this. And I think the most interesting point for me with this topic is that over the course of my career across different countries, so Canada, United States, and Hong Kong, across different industries, so investment banking to super small startup to, of course, Foodpanda in Hong Kong, to different company sizes. These topics have changed for me throughout my career, from investment banking where health wealth and happiness. Well, for me, happiness was just getting a job in corporate, and wealth would be getting that paycheck, which was quite a nice one back in the day. And then transitioning over to New York City and running a startup there, happiness to me was just building a company from zero to actually something. Regrettably, health and wealth maybe were a little bit sacrificed. And then fast forward to now where I'm in Hong Kong and leading the Foodpanda for Business team. I work with such hungry and passionate people every single day. And we're really, really trying to make a difference. And so coming into work every day, working with an amazing team, empowering my team, and seeing the impact that we're actually doing to build Foodpanda for Business, that's really resonates with me in terms across all three pillars right now in my career.
Love it. Okay. How about you, Ken? How's that?
Okay. So without repeating anything that Melissa said, I think on my end, I think particularly more so during COVID, I think the idea of driving more happiness within the workplace is actually super important. At least for me, I think throughout my own career, going from a couple of big banks to now working for a fintech startup, I think the guiding light for me has always been, even though I am the wealth guy, to not be driven by money. Right? What drives me is actually the ability to help others achieve wealth or gain additional happiness. And I think that's something that's been my guiding light for the past few years. And I think hasn't steered me wrong, right? So hopefully today, within today's sharing, we can talk a little bit more about some of the good practices that we've done within our own workplace, and also potentially drive, as people wanted more happiness, drive more happiness to everyone who's listening.
Yeah. Love it. How about you, Thomas? How does that look like for you?
So for me, also try not to repeat anything that's been said earlier. Of course, we go to work to make money, but it's a big part of our lives. So for me, I really want to be in a place that I enjoy waking up every morning, going to working with the great colleagues I have and helping other people find these. So I really believe that if you're happy at work, you're spending all this time at work, then you're going to be happier as well and healthier. And so for my personal experience, I've worked in around 6-7 different startups. Each one has a different culture. So it's like dating. You want to make sure that it's a good fit, not only for the person, but also the company and vice versa. So in some of my past experiences, I sort of developed some health issues. And after doing some tests, it came down to being stressed at work. So I think really it all intertwines your health, wealth, and happiness in the workplace.
Okay.
Cool. So for me, I think it changed over the years, like Melissa said. It was much more focused on myself before. And since joining LinkedIn, it's become much more of a collective effort.
Yeah.
Right? Before it was always, what am I making? What's the paycheck I'm taking home? What's my lifestyle, like healthiness and whatnot. But now it became much more collective. So we have these healthy challenges at work. When we see each other making money, we're happy for each other, we're cheering each other on. So it became much more of a group effort rather than an individual sort of achievement that I saw before.
Oh, okay. Fantastic. Okay, let's move on to our fireside session. So we're going to start off with health. Okay. So my first question here is, in terms of health and well-being, let's talk about industry trends. So food and the greater topic of health. So should workplaces get involved with that? What's the situation over there, Mel?
I can definitely answer this one. So for those that don't know, Foodpanda for Business is focused on bringing teams together over something that we all love, and this is food. And I think it's very interesting because different industries actually kind of provide this perk in different ways. So some of the insights that we're seeing is you have the professional services companies like legal, law firms, banks, consulting firms. The way that they provide food to their employees, it tends to be more on, say, an OT allowance. So yes, the hours can sometimes be long, but let's try to boost morale and productivity by giving dinner or something like that. And then we have a different industry, say more of tech startups. This is a much more collaborative type of perk that is being given, and it's about bringing people together. So bringing people together over meals, whether it's a shared lunch, whether it's a daily team meeting that's happening and that's fueled by food. But of course, as we have all seen in the world in unprecedented times, COVID has had a huge impact for Foodpanda for Business. As you can imagine, we bring teams together over food, and because of COVID, teams are not together over food. And so it's been very, very interesting to see how Foodpanda for Business and our team has pivoted during these times. Some of the things that we actually have done and what we've seen is that despite, over 70% of companies around the world are actually working from home and providing flexible working situations, the need for bringing teams together, boosting morale, happiness is even more. So some of the things that Foodpanda for Business has been doing during this time is, say for the professional services industries, we've enabled flexi address. So now teams can actually order food to their homes using this allowance program. Or we launched the voucher shop. So as we do things like virtual webinars, teams can actually give vouchers, Foodpanda vouchers for their teams to order food at home. And so those are the kinds of things that we have launched just to kind of help companies, because this has been a very interesting topic during COVID. It's our teams are not together, but we really want to boost culture. We really want to boost happiness. How can we do that still with food?
Okay. Mel, you mentioned this really interesting concept, which is well-being. And I think actually LinkedIn is doing a lot of initiatives in kind of that direction. Ron, do you want to share a little bit more about that?
So internally, that's something we're promoting to our staff. But externally, we also have an employee engagement survey called Flint. And we do publish these reports regularly. And something I was just chatting with Melissa before the event is that the top 10 contributors to culture is actually constantly changing. And something we're seeing that's new is actually support for well-being. And then she started mentioning about the corporate programs that Foodpanda has. Mm-hmm. And this is brand new to the list. It's not even on the list in 2019. The opportunities, career opportunities, the growth, the belonging, all these are very typical, but support for well-being, that's something new on the list that we're seeing. So it's pretty encouraging to see Foodpanda and AQUMON Happiness thinking about these corporate programs to support and to connect these remote workers.
Okay, yeah, that's very, very interesting. But I think kind of taking a step back, talking about this whole idea of wellness and well-being, I think we often think about, hey, like physical well-being, like we got to be healthy, like career well-being, we got to have a job that we like. But I think something we talk about a little less is financial well-being and how that plays a role in both our life and our work. So Ken, do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. I think, obviously what we can see is particularly during COVID, everyone's under a lot of stress. I think I told Daryl earlier that I think when we look at the data in the market, Hong Kong is, I think, the top 5 most stressful places in the world. I'm sure we might be number 1 now, it's possible, but we were number 5 before, right? And so, but actually a lot of times when we look at a corporate workplace, we talk about eating well, doing more yoga. So a lot of it's like physical and like mental well-being, which is also very important. But one actually pillar that we actually rarely talk about is the financial wellness pillar, right? Because I think for most people here in Hong Kong, the vast majority of us, data would say 53%, but I'm sure it's much higher, that we all stress over our finances, particularly during COVID. I think even at my current workplace, or maybe even my prior workplaces, during cycles when markets are actually quite, I would say, volatile, it is not uncommon to see many people stress over their income and their job, right? It's not uncommon now, I think, for many of us to hear that we have many friends who went from multi-income families to potential single-income families. And I think this is a reason why in Hong Kong and also globally, when people are seeing both their jobs, potentially their income being less stable, why we have so many people rush into the investment market, one, to protect their own wealth, but also many people are thinking about how to grow their wealth through investing. I mean, at AQUMON, what we're trying to do is really take something that's very complicated or maybe not so approachable like investing and make it more simple and easy to do. And for most people who can't make decisions on their own investments, offer automated decisions making for the clients so that at least they're able to access quickly. It's like, high quality investments, also help them manage their risk and help them on their journey to wealth building. So I think particularly during COVID, this is something that I experienced day to day, even in my current workplace or in my prior workplace as well. And I think that's something that everyone really should be putting a little bit more effort into in terms of how they're going to actually protect and grow their wealth.
Okay, that's very interesting insight. There's another side of the coin to this wealth equation that I had a chance to talk to Thomas about. So it's pretty much about the work that Happier does and what wealth means to your market, which is Gen Z's, the modern job seeker we were talking about. So how does wealth look like in terms of Happier? What in your vision?
First off, definitely agree with Ken. Financial literacy is really important, and the earlier you start, the better. So because our audience is very young, we're also incorporating more of these workshops to give them an insight into how to start learning about stocks, investing, and really making sure their future is secure. But on the flip side, in the workplace, yes, it's great to have a job, to have money, especially nowadays. But then we're seeing a lot more people, especially millennials, Gen Z, young people who are revaluing their lives and their careers and asking, okay, is money that as important to me as, say, the work environment, the work-life balance, the culture? So we really focus on that, making sure it's a good fit and showcasing the different companies and how maybe if you're really into sustainability, is your company doing something around that? Are you in diversity and inclusion? Do you want to promote more on women empowerment? So now it's important for companies to showcase, yes, we're doing these initiatives to attract the right talents so that everyone is happier and can bring their true selves to work.
Okay, really, really interesting. I'd like to shift the conversation a little bit more towards our most voted poll option, which is happiness. So I guess to start off a little bit more about what you mentioned about glints. I know that that's a lot of data that can point towards the common kind of happiness points in workplace. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So I think I'm going to bring back to LinkedIn a little bit before I go into Glenn. So the whole LinkedIn experience, it's a social media platform aimed for professionals, but we have a lot of data inside, right? And I think this is something that people need to realize is that it's a huge data company. And with that, there's a lot of analytics that we can pull out of that, a lot of insights. And to add on top of what's already on the network, we have the solution called Glint, which is an employee engagement survey tool. And what happens is we take regular pulses, and these are customers, right? So we have created these surveys to understand what their feelings, emotions, challenges are like. LinkedIn also deploys that internally for our staff, and we run this quite regularly during the pandemic and even afterwards. Well, we're still in it, but it's something we regularly use. And something that we would derive from these surveys is a happiness index over time, right? And last year we saw a buildup of it all the way until June. The happiness index was going up before it started sliding down because of all the lockdowns in the US and Europe. And we only started seeing the climb back up in the Q1 of this year. So last 2 months, I think it was a 0.4% of increase. Now, it's not a straight question of, hey, are you happy at work? 1 to 10, and then we do an average. That's not how it works. But we take a survey around topics that would influence your happiness. So are you stressed out at work? Is there collaboration? Do you feel disconnected? Are you financially stressed? Are you having stress because your family member or friends might have been getting hit with COVID? Things like that. So there's questions built around it, and there's different pillars that we're evaluating on to derive this happiness index over time. And this is published information, and this is something we can search online. On the happiness side, and of course on the not so positive side, the burnout side as well, right? That's also on the rise. I mean, the happiness is on the rise, but also the burnout because of the work from home situation. But of course, we can dive a little deeper into that later on. But Glenn is definitely publishing these happiness index, and you can dive into what is contributing to it and how we can react to it. And I think that's the most important piece. Giving that information on, okay, well, we're getting happier or less happy, great. What are we going to do with it? How do we support them? I think that's what's worth the time diving into.
Okay.
Absolutely. What are they assessing behind the scenes in terms of to arrive at this quantitative data?
So thank you for that build-up question. Actually, this is not rehearsed.
To be honest,
I am so glad you brought this up.
How
oh my
do you
goodness!
quantify happiness?
Yes. How do you quantify happiness? That's such a great question. So at Glint, we have a team of people scientists. Actually, there's a team that's called people scientists team that come up with these questions. So typically, a workplace survey will be fairly lengthy, right? You're spending 50, 60 questions. And this team of elite professionals has shortened it down to a 6 to 10 question sort of survey. Okay, how do I increase the confidence level with minimum amount of questions asked?
Right.
Okay, and based on that, they'll be deriving these figures or these scores, these EVS scores on whether is it on career progression, is it on opportunities, and on fairness at work, things like that. So we're analyzing on the feedback, not just on numbers, but also on how they're commenting on the topic. So analyzing that on the score side, you get that average score, but can also dive deeper into what categories are in. And that's how they derive the top 10 factors to culture, similarly how they would derive the score.
Okay. A little anecdote I'd like to share here. So I've had the pleasure to work with Mel for quite a bit, and she's quite kind of at the forefront of building a culture for our Foodpanda for Business team. So in addition to what Mel is doing for our small team, there's also a lot of things that are happening company-wide for Foodpanda to kind of contribute to this feeling of happiness at the workplace. Mel, do you want to talk a little bit more about what Foodpanda is doing?
Yeah, I actually love that, Ron. I think really asking that question of what is happiness, because it's such a big question, and what does it actually mean? And coming to Foodpanda, I mean, I've been here for about a year now. I think it's really amazing to see how Foodpanda and myself actually advocates this in the workplace. It's happiness is a bunch of pillars, right? Is the team feeling empowered? Do they feel like they're making an impact? Are they supported in learning development? Do we have resources across, corporate social responsibility? And Daryl, bringing to your point about what am I doing for the team, one of the biggest things is how can I help to develop my team, both on a personal level and on a professional basis. So yes, trying to give my team the tools and resources that they need to do their job well, more efficient, but also really trying to identify what are the other skill sets that those on my team want to develop for even past Foodpanda for Business, hopefully not, but so whether it's management, whether it's more creative, developing creativity, more creative skills, whether it is project management, and really taking those desired skills and figuring out how can we collaborate across the department and actually grow those skills for them professionally. I think also when you talk about bigger Foodpanda, I think Foodpanda does a really great job of really trying to recognize the work that the teams are doing, recognizing them through quarterly all hands decks, celebrating the different achievements that everyone is doing, and providing a forum for everyone on the team, whether from intern to senior management, to have a voice, to be able to speak to our CEO once a week. We have a program like that. And so all in all, I do have to say, one of the things that I'm very proud of and I will continue to advocate for is to give my team the voice and to grow professionally and personally.
Okay. That was a really good point about the professional and personal level. And that sort of got me thinking about Ken's question as well, how are you gauging this, right? So it's not just the workplace, but some of them do feel that there's conflict between home and the workplace, that's bothering their happiness, or feeling disconnected from their coworkers. I had that for a little bit, like when I joined the company, COVID hit. Like, well, I don't feel that belonging yet. Luckily, good colleagues like Kathy, if you're on the call, and friends, they make me feel welcome. But those are things causing happiness to drop, right? So, those are all factors that I think Melissa's helping to address at her team.
I think what's interesting, just because I was actually a bit surprised how kind of quantitative you guys were taking that in terms of deriving this happiness index. But actually, maybe even though, as a finance firm or a fintech firm, we are very data driven, but maybe I wanted to kind of talk about something that was more human driven, right? Just because I think particularly during COVID, I think a lot of times it's just more about connecting more with your colleagues more on a human level, right? They're just asking people how they're doing. I think even if my teammates are listening right now, I apologize profusely because I say in a startup, a lot of times, if I think about it in sort of a human family type environment is, mom and dad is not always home, right? So you kind of need to fend for yourself a lot of the times because mom and dad is busy out there trying to make money, trying to make ends meet for everyone and trying to make a better life for everyone at the firm. And so, working in a startup environment, it's pretty tough. Hours can be quite long. You might not get a lot of guidance. And I think over this past year, I've had a number of conversations, both with my team and also people at my firm. And, it's quite evident that everyone has much more elevated stress points at home. And also during the period when we couldn't see each other. And I think even though, we have meetings every morning on Zoom or whatever the case may be, but my whole thing with them was thinking about it. This isn't so much of a reporting type meeting. Actually, this was just more of a meeting for us to be able to see each other's faces. And the idea of us, almost like us sitting together, where it's just like, if you're letting us know what you're doing, the goal should be for the others to immediately go, okay, that's how I can help. I can help you in that way. And just to know that you're not alone. Because actually during COVID, particularly in Hong Kong, where we're all living in, I would say, much smaller type housing environments, feeling alone can actually be quite natural. And I think it's during this period that actually we probably need to reach out more to kind of connect with more people on a human level so that they feel more of a connection at work amongst their colleagues and also, I would say, feel more love, right? And happiness, obviously.
And I think one thing to add to that as well is I think it's really important for communication and for all the HR professionals to create a safe environment where you feel okay to share that you're not okay. And you can put down all the facades. That I think it's very typical, and especially Asian households, to have to go to work and show that you're the best at everything and that nothing's wrong. But I think it really comes down to the team being able to share with each other and like sort of make their own little family at work, especially for maybe people who don't have family in Hong Kong like myself. We rely a lot on each other, on colleagues, on friends. So it's really just making that connection, creating an environment that can promote that sort of collaboration, really human touch, like Ken said.
I think there's, constantly, obviously at work, we're always being pushed to deliver numbers, deliver whatever, right? So it actually can be, in a way, I think quite crippling. For most people, it's like you're running, I think there's a like hedonist treadmill or something like that, where they're talking about all you're doing is you're just chasing goals and you're always running on the treadmill. Actually, you go nowhere. And I think it's important actually for people to sometimes just take a moment and look back and see where you came from. A lot of times, like even for us, we've seen tremendous growth here at AQUMON. But having said that, it's almost like once you get it, you're chasing the next thing. But actually, it's important to kind of maybe just take 2 moments to go, wow, I can't believe just 3 months ago, like how far we've come, and actually just celebrate that in a way. Whether it's through an actual celebration through food or otherwise, or I think just at least mentally to celebrate that, because everyone needs like kind of a pat in the back to know that they're on the right track.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a big part of work is the fact that it takes up so much of our week. We are working almost 10 hours every day for 5 days a week. So we have to find ways to make that experience kind of more enjoyable and to work towards something that we're more passionate about, right? So actually, Thomas, I know Happier does a big part in that to make sure that the modern job seeker do land in a job that they can feel passionate about, and they don't feel like they're just doing chores or chasing KPI, but they're actually working towards a dream that, they believe in. Something like that, yeah?
Definitely. So I'm very blessed to be Happier with really great colleagues. We get along and we feel like we're really creating impact and value in the community. And so that's really our goal and why our name is Happier. We're trying to make sure that people find the right places for them so that they are happier. But like dating, everyone has a different viewpoint of what makes them happy. Maybe it's the financials, maybe it's free food or lunch orders or drinking, who knows?
Sales Navigators.
Sales Navigators, yeah. Wow. So our objective is really to give people transparent view into that culture and work environment and what sort of benefits, amenities they have in the office. And for instance, I've talked to one person who hates co-working spaces.
Oh, okay.
So obviously they can't work in maybe a startup or companies that are trying to expand on this, but then really it's different for everybody. So it's really giving them options and showing them, okay, this is what you should expect. And this is our culture. And if it's a good fit, then we're all happier.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for that point. Actually, I think something that Mel and I are trying to push forward is we are doing this delivery to workplaces with food, that sort of thing. But I think the story that we're trying to tell at Foodpanda is it goes beyond the food. It goes beyond the relationships that we're trying to build around the food. Do you want to talk about that a little bit and how that contributes to happiness, Mel?
Yeah, so I think for us, it's about, what I always tell everyone whenever I speak about food, it's, if you really think about it, across the world, everyone speaks different languages. And what is that one bonding commonality? It is food. And we need it to survive, but also think about the moments that you share over food. It's the moments with your family, it's the moments with your friends, and possibly the happier you are is maybe with food. And so so we love puns here. But yes, I think overall, in terms of these experiences, we do try to make sure that, again, with COVID, everyone is at home, as you mentioned. And so how do we do that? So one of the things that we did during this kind of unprecedented time was actually launch catering. Catering was a new vertical that we launched. We launched it on web only. And when you think about catering, it's about larger meals. And due to the pandemic and being unable to actually eat in restaurants at the time, it's about how can we bring that experience to you? Again, not just to our corporate customers, but we were trying to extend this to all Foodpanda users. And that has been a really awesome new initiative that we did, because it also, again, it allows large quantities of food that you may not be able to order otherwise delivered to your home and in a safe space, especially during COVID.
I think to add on to that, I mean, before COVID, we were flexible already, but with COVID, more people were working from home. And so for us, we really miss the sort of people aspect, coming to see everyone in the office, having team lunches. So what we did was actually utilize food delivery services to have team lunches, turn on the cameras, like Ken said, so it looks like we're interacting, and then we order food, or we'll order food for the team to deliver to their individual homes and just have like a
That's
team
awesome.
gathering.
Did you order the same thing?
No, it was all different.
So one of the cool things actually that I have seen is that yes, everyone gets kind of this budget to order food to their home, and then you have a team lunch together. But a really fun activity would be actually you order food for your colleague. And so everyone kind of gets a different meal, but it's kind of what that colleague, a special gift from that colleague to you, kind of thinking about your preferences, a little surprise. And that has been a fun team activity that we've seen.
Has anybody ever gotten upset at the food? It's like, oh, I hate this food.
No, thank you very much. Because food makes everyone happier, right?
Yeah. I'm actually looking at a very interesting Q&A question that I'd like to open up right away, and then we can maybe move on to workplace. So Ernest Fung, thank you, Ernest. He asks, how are you making sure that you are measuring happiness in the right way?
How are we sure to be measuring happiness in the right way? And I think there's a couple of ways to be looking at this, right? It depends on how your company culture is built around, right? And for LinkedIn, I think there's a lot of collaboration going on. Like for us, staying connected, that's important for us, right? Not just virtually, but in the office with our colleagues, that's important for us. Now, of course, you can't put our company culture on, let's say, Foodpanda, AQUMON, Happier. So there's got to be some sort of middle ground, we need to agree to. Now, what we're publishing is based off of our research, and there's different happiness indices out there. And we were talking about, is that the same thing? Is it not? You got to look at whether what they're measuring is what you're looking for, right? It's where the data is coming from, right? To derive this number. You can't just blindly go, okay, well, Clint said it's happiness going up, everyone's happier. Great, let's move on. You look at, the breakdown of where it's coming from. And most of the researchers do have a little footer at the bottom, like where is this coming from? What's the sample sizes, right? Is it based in the US? Is it based in APAC? Is it, global? Where is it coming from? And what are their sources of this? Is it based on rental prices versus income? Is it based on financials? Is it based on I'm full, 80% of the time versus I don't even have food? So I think look at the research and see what the basis is. What we're saying is ours is based on employee surveys. That's where that's coming from. So you got to look at a couple of researchers to see what the happiness is. And then we do have customized, shameless plug here, but customized surveys for different companies to see if the cultural fit for each employee is there and see how happy they are at the company. And this does reduce the attrition rates and increase productivity. And that's ultimately what we want to do, right? So
is the sample size like a few thousand, 10,000, 100,000, like in that range?
In the latest one, I think it was just shy of 10,000.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty good amount of people.
Yeah, the latest one was in May, but there's, I think they do it monthly. That gets published. So I saw one that was in February, and I just pulled up the May one. That's all. You guys can do the Google.
I think something that's really awesome. I actually really look forward to reading this report personally. But at Foodpanda, what's really interesting is every quarter, every couple months, what we do is we kind of do an NPS survey or a happiness survey. And the most interesting, aside from getting that score, evaluating on different pillars like, feeling supported, empowered, all the things we were chatting about. One of my favorite parts is the comments. Because I think it also brings to light that there are pillars, there are ways to measure happiness that, you might not be able to bucket. And so maybe Thomas, this is in the comments section, that would be where someone would write, I don't like co-working spaces or something like that. And again, that feedback is really, really useful to read. And then maybe building that into a separate pillar, we can take that and add it to the survey going forward. But that shines light on a lot of topics sometimes that we may not think about when we think of happiness.
But I think maybe Ernest. So Ernest, GSIS buddy, hello. That's from my high school. Anyways, I wanted to say, I think what Ernest mentioned is actually pretty good in the sense that I think because his point is the measurement for happiness is changing over time. Like what even was just 3-5 years ago is very different from now. So I'm sure over at Glint, you guys are also adjusting over time as well. Obviously, this is maybe the first few series.
And I guess the weighting would be different over time, right? And obviously when they came up the survey, pandemic did not hit yet. Work from home didn't exist. Virtual meetings didn't exist. So that connectivity, that was not an issue. So it does change over time. And based on that, the people scientists, they're the ones that's changing different weightings on it, what's impacting these things, right? And there's different pillars that gets broken down. Happiness is a general score, and like Melissa said, it does get broken down into different subcategories. Yeah.
But just the fact that you have an index to me is actually quite amazing just because if you ask me to quantify happiness, I mean, obviously we can quantify financials, but happiness is something that I would have a tough time doing. And the fact that you're already doing it is pretty awesome.
There's a graph.
There's a graph.
We all like looking at graphs.
Charts.
We all love charts and graphs.
Charts. Okay.
Yes.
Great. Okay.
Okay. Let's move on to workplace.
Sure.
So Ron, you actually mentioned something quite interesting previously about having a proper balance between working from home and also interacting with your colleagues in person. Where do you think that balance lies?
So I think when it first started, everyone did enjoy the flexibility, right? Stay from home, you don't have to get changed, commute to work, and everything's just really quick. And then personally, I had experience where Hong Kong, I'm experienced a lot of neighbors that keeps renovating their places, right? Like you can't focus on your work during work hours. So that drove me back to the office pretty regularly. But for other colleagues that have other responsibilities, this flexibility is really useful. Now, it doesn't work for everybody, right? Can you draw that line where there's no clear end to work into your personal life? And then you end up having much longer out. And this is not any new topic, right? When does work end and when does personal start? And that gets blurred. Now, understanding that there's a need for both, I guess what LinkedIn is doing is we're offering a work from home policy, where if you're working from home under 50% of the time, you don't need manager approval, just for that flexibility of taking care of the family, personal items, and you don't need to go to work if you don't feel comfortable about it. Or if you need to take care of relatives, family members outside the country, there's those kind of flexible arrangements that we're doing. And I think they've given us quite a bit of autonomy individually to make that judgment call. And I think that trust that the company gives you, like it gives that sense of, hey, they do trust me on making these decisions, and that I can execute them to what makes me happier in general, not just at work.
Okay. Mel, do you want to talk a little bit more about how work from home works at Foodpanda?
Yeah, so we similarly, actually, I love that it seems like a lot of the key messaging across LinkedIn is across globally. And I think that's very interesting to see, because I'm sure you get to see some of the perks that are, perks or benefits that are being implemented maybe in the US, for example, and you're getting to see that firsthand in Hong Kong. I think that's very interesting. At Foodpanda, some of the things that the company has been able to implement across the company, of course, is flexible working, working from home and finding ways to be collaborative even thus. So one of my favorite tools actually, and my team hears me say this all the time, is Asana. Asana is a project management tool, and it has really helped us during kind of the time of not being together, but still wanting to launch and execute on these different projects. And it not only helps us become accountable for our different tasks, but also collaborate. So it kind of mixes the social media, social aspects, emojis and liking and commenting, but also the productivity side. So, we're attaching sheets and comments, etc. And then secondly, something that we're also rolling out is the unlimited leave policy, which I think is super, leave. Yes. So it's something that is coming to Foodpanda. And I think it's quite common actually coming from US and Canada, but to see it come to Foodpanda is very, very exciting and really kind of promotes the importance of well-being and mental health as well. So taking that time to really separate yourself from work and the busyness and craziness of that.
So, sorry.
Yeah, sure.
So in Happier, we're a much smaller team. I think we're the smallest team here. So we're able to experiment and implement these policies a lot quicker. So we have unlimited leave.
Oh yeah, how is that?
It's great in theory.
I'm still on it.
This is the lead right now, right? Yeah, okay.
It's great in theory, but I think it's really important the way you implement it and promote it. Because if you're in a really stressful work environment where you say, okay, there's unlimited leave, but there's a pressure for everyone to keep working overtime, then no one uses it. Even for us, we're promoting them like, hey, go take leave. I think in total, the entire team has taken 10 days of leave.
Really?
So they actually took less. And we're like, okay, you guys have to use 20 days by the end of June or whatever.
So you're forcing them to.
Yeah, because they think they have all the leave that they can take, but there's nowhere to travel. So like, okay, I'll just keep working until whenever. And then they may reach burnout more. So
that's
it's really
a very interesting
approaching.
Point. So how has it worked in Happier? It has gone to that point where how it's been successful is really advocating to take that break. Is that
yes.
Okay.
I think people just enjoy working.
Everyone's so happy.
We have drinks almost every week on Fridays and whatnot, but really we're like, you need to take time for yourself and be a little selfish. It's okay
of course,
to just do what you enjoy outside of work.
Exactly, of course.
We have implemented a no meeting day, like once a month.
That's very interesting.
And when we try not having the meetings and explaining this to customers could be challenging at times. What do you mean you can't take it? Okay, never mind. I'm just busy, right? So hopefully not too many of my clients are on the call, but we do have these me time sort of moments from LinkedIn.
Is it the same day for everyone?
It's the same day. And during Easter, I think we had a whole week of this and explaining to them there's no service from anybody for a week. That was
That could be something very interesting, actually.
Yeah, because I mean, if parts of the team is working, they're sending emails out, you're receiving it while you're on break, but do you reply or not? So when it gets to let's have some me time.
I thought it was interesting just because actually kind of gets back to something a little bit more like fundamental. Whereas even if you have unlimited leave, people may not want to take it. Right. So I kind of feel like a lot of times, like during COVID, we're always talking about increasing our productivity because we're all away from each other. So productivity has reduced. But maybe if you don't mind me being a bit like kind of like the devil's advocate, actually, I think it's a little bit more like Tai Chi, right? So in Tai Chi, there's some places where you push and there's some places where you need to know how to pull. And I kind of feel like in certain situations, particularly maybe working for a smaller startup or a fintech, like the idea of the treadmill is something that people don't take leave because like they're being pushed all the time to deliver. And I think I'm guilty of this as well, but I mean, I think it's important to remind everyone that even though you do take a break, it's fine. I mean, if your company or your firm cannot survive, if you enjoy working, that's fine. But I think for a lot of people, like if your company cannot survive, you just take a break, then clearly your company's shouldn't survive, right? But I kind of feel like the idea, what you mentioned earlier about having that, but actually reminding everyone, maybe fundamentally people need to know that it's not just about taking a break, but it's just part of the process.
And I think like Ron said, everyone's really different, your background, if you have a family, if you have other obligations. So it's really giving them the choice, the options, but just reminding them that it's there, please take advantage of it.
But Foodpanda still got to deliver.
Okay.
Create happy experiences.
A little bit off topic, but I've been signing off a lot of my emails to clients with food for thought. And I wonder how many of them actually laugh at that. Okay, so we have a couple sections left to this webinar. The penultimate session is actually where we are going to share a couple of slides that each of you have sent to us. And we're going to be talking about, so far we've just been talking about how we've been helping our own teams. Now we're going to be talking about how we've been helping our clients and partners externally. Da-da-da. I think my team was saying before I left for this webinar that I should do an intermission where I like sing a song.
No, you shouldn't do that.
I just want to take this shot to tell my team, to whoever's listening, that it didn't gain brand approval.
Or this moment where you find, who got the pink first.
Yeah.
Oh man, all right. Okay.
Okay, so can we see the slides?
Let's open with the Google slide. Health, wealth, and happiness, and technology. We forgot about that.
That was not part of it.
Oh, that was.
Technology was not. I'm surprised. More money wasn't part of the list either. Workplace got on the list.
There we go. Let's see. Let's take some time to present. While we wait for this to load up, we also have a 10-minute section at the end to have some Q&As. So we've actually received quite a couple of questions. The first one being from Paul Dalliancourt. Very good question, Paul. Thank you. But we'll get to that later.
Maybe we can answer a few questions now while we're waiting. Maybe.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, just intermission, right?
Okay.
What's the most challenging one so far?
Okay, I have one here. It's from anonymous attendee. Ooh.
It's my boss or something.
Yeah, surprise.
This one says, what does personal happiness mean to yourself? Not as an entrepreneur or senior, but as a colleague or maybe a subordinate. What does that mean?
Wait, so he says personally and then it went not very personal. Like it's a really collaborative sort of effort. I think for me at the workplace happiness, when you feel that support coming through, when you're doing well, they're supporting it. And when you're not doing well, how are they helping you out of that rather than, hey, why aren't you doing so well? And that's something I do feel with this current team right now, not just with managers, but all the teammates. Like, hey, how can we help out? How can we pitch in? And everyone sort of pulls in whenever it needs to. So that's keeping me pretty happy at work.
Yeah. Okay.
So I have a background in positive psychology, and the definition of happiness is really hard to define. But for me, it's really on making sure you're resilient enough to go through the highs and the lows, because scientifically, you cannot stay happy all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's impossible, because once you get there, you want more and more and more. So it's really just being able to be optimistic and surround yourself with people who let you enjoy yourself, and just, it's about the little things, really.
Right.
Yeah.
I think for me is up until maybe the past 2 years, I think it was much more about my personal goals. But I think maybe since I also matured as well, I think maybe for me, the big thing is helping others. That's been the number one thing, both here at the workplace or people around me. Making others successful, I am a strong believer that will make me happy and also make me successful as well. And I think sometimes, particularly in a bigger corporation, everyone's so concerned about the immediate benefit. Why do we need to work together? Because the benefit doesn't seem clear. And you're always trying to repitch your idea so that they benefit and you benefit, and it's a win-win. But it's kind of an oxymoron, like win-win type situation. But I think if you truly have people who are just looking to help other people, actually there's a lot of magic and a lot of like good things that can happen from that.
Just to add on, studies have shown that one of the quickest ways to boost happiness is to go volunteer, donate your time. And it doesn't mean you have to go out and help the homeless. You can even volunteer your time to tutor a friend or a friend's kid. And I saw a lot of companies are incorporating this by creating or allowing 5 days a month, a year, where you can go volunteer. So you're getting paid to volunteer on behalf of the company. And I think that's great.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, we actually have a very good CSR program that actually advocates for that. So last week we did a beach cleanup.
Yeah,
awesome.
Beach cleanup, rice packing, also really promoting kind of mental well-being. We had a pet day in the office, something that I'm personally very passionate about. But yes, no, it's incredible to see the efforts that the CSR, we actually have a dedicated CSR individual in our team that is really about focusing on internal employee well-being, but also external stakeholder and our corporate social responsibility externally as well.
All right. Thank you, Woody, if you're out there.
Thank you, Woody.
Okay, let's get into our kind of our value add slides. Ron, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so let me kickstart with LinkedIn's sort of mission, right? Is to connect professionals and make them more productive and successful. And obviously, we do have a social media platform, and we do work on connecting them. But here's something we're doing offline, and I guess now online, is that we do share our best practices. Kind of like today, like what are we doing in-house? And that's something that I do feel as I talk to my customers, friends, connections, they are interested in saying, hey, what else is LinkedIn doing? And I think they do look at tech firms and they go, well, they do things for their employees. What's going on in there? So in terms of employee experience or work from home policies, different volunteer works, like what are you guys doing? So we're sharing a lot of these practices. Another thing we're doing is providing a lot of insights. Like I said earlier, LinkedIn is a huge data company, and we do produce quite a number of reports. I will post these on the events group on LinkedIn afterwards, so you can download them. These aren't like secret reports you got to buy. We don't sell reports. You just got to submit your contacts and they get sent to you, right? So I'll post these links on the events.
Yes.
You can't pay me. I can just. I mean, we do collaborate with like local government bodies to come up with some localized reports. And then finally, we do offer free courses. There's 8 big categories. So for job seeking, for managers, how to communicate virtually. But one thing I want to highlight is there is a section on stress management. How do you deal with personal versus work life? So these are all courses that is offered through LinkedIn Learning for free on the platform. I'll leave those links on the events afterwards as well. So these are some of the things that on a voluntary basis that the company and the staff is doing on their time.
Okay, really cool. Thanks for that sharing. Next up, we have Happier.
I mean, really great resources, Ron, and LinkedIn. It's awesome. So a bit from our side, we really focus on company culture and showing people, young, modern job seekers, that through the use of media, so a lot of video, because that's the number one form of media consumption nowadays, pictures, your social media, and it's really important to not only get your external ambassadors, but internal ambassadors to share, oh, your work from home, your bring your dog to work day, or these sorts of initiatives to show what the actual environment's like. Like we work hard, but we also play hard. And when it comes from your own employees posting on their personal social medias, it comes off as more genuine and authentic. So that's something that we really push companies to do. And then also show how you're taking care of your teammates during this tough time, how you're communicating and providing resources and letting them know that they can come talk to you about things that are bothering them at home or at work. And then really just aligning on your purpose, vision, value, and mission, because once everyone's aligned on there, it's a lot smoother, people more productive and more happy in the workplace.
Okay, really cool. Thanks for that sharing. All right, Ken, what you got for us?
Okay, so everyone loves the lucky number 8. So I gave you 8 steps. Technically, if you use our service, it's 1 step, but regardless, I prepared a lot for that. No, joking. No, I think truth be told, it could be a different kind of presentation in itself. But actually, I think a lot of people need to really think about from start to finish in terms of how to actually gain financial wellness. It doesn't only start from investing, even though that's what AQUMON does. But to me, I think it starts from controlling your expenses, reducing your debt, because if your debt is high, there's no investing that you can do that can get out of that. So I think particularly, nowadays, there's a lot of virtual banks or maybe even apps like some of our friends over at like Planto. Like you can download these apps which will track your expenses, give you actually like full transparency in terms of how you're spending your money, and actually help you more intelligently allocate how you should be saving and also spending. Right. So, and I think particularly during COVID, the emergency fund is something that most people don't even think about because most of us live paycheck to paycheck, regardless of how much income we have. And that's something that I think, you normally speaking, like at least a 3 to 6 month emergency fund for most people is quite important. And finally, I think particularly when we're saving for retirement or otherwise, but particularly for retirement in Hong Kong, I think there's a huge gap in terms of what people think they need and what people actually need. Because when you look at a lot of the data in the market, most people, they would say to actually live in the lifestyle that most of us want to live, after we probably retire at age 65, we probably need over $4 million Hong Kong to actually sustain that lifestyle. But actually for most of us, by the time we get to that point, the nest egg that we build probably is like 3 million or less. So there's a huge gap in terms of how we're able to achieve that. And I think for a lot of us, at least for myself, I think I am bridging that gap through investing, but it's not just about nowadays you hear stuff like, GameStop, AMC, crypto, Bitcoin, and everything was chasing, right? But as an experienced investor, it's not about chasing. Actually, it's like the Tai Chi thing, right? It's about push and pull. So I think particularly in this market when everyone's very euphoric, and I see many retail investors go from 10% of the market now to 30% of the market, rushing into the market, buying up all these different investments, great for them. But again, short-term happiness, long-term wise, I think you need to have a plan. And so I think with a lot of employers, they should, beyond the yoga, wonderful food, also keeping everyone happy. Also, you need to be thinking about educating your employees about how they should be managing their wealth, maybe getting an expert in to come in to talk, and also maybe offering tools for them to grow their wealth, because just using the MPF in Hong Kong, if you don't mind me saying, probably not adequate for you to reach your retirement goals. A lot of different reasons for that. So I think particularly there are a lot of great apps out there, ourselves included, but there are a lot of great investment apps out there that can actually help you bridge closer to that goal. And hopefully we'll have another maybe a presentation to actually go through the details of that. And I'll also upload a slide pack that I made that will actually go through each and all the 8 steps. So if you guys have questions afterwards, you can reach out to us. And obviously always you can look at our app or download and check it out and reach out to us if you need.
For sure. Lucky number 8. That's it.
Exactly.
All right, Mel, what you got for us? Let's finish.
I guess I'm going to finish this one off. So Foodpanda for Business. So we are a lovely team at Foodpanda for Business, and our passion and goal is to bring teams together over food. As I mentioned, we're seeing across different industries. This is done in different ways. So we have an allowance tool. This is tend to be used for those companies that want to give some sort of OT allowance. So you give your team a budget, $100, $200. for a late night meal, all that can be done on our platform. As I mentioned as well, we have our own voucher shop. So again, with COVID, we're adapting here. Teams might not be together and ordering food together, but how that can be done is ordering Foodpanda vouchers, and those can be distributed to your team. And then through webinars, through team building events, and even from home, you can kind of enjoy that meal together. A couple of the other things that we do in Foodpanda for Business, bringing food to companies, includes recurring meal plans. So as I mentioned, bringing teams together over a lunch. It's not easy coordinating food for large groups. As you know, it can, you don't want it to come late. You don't want it to be set up poorly. You don't want someone with a nut allergy to accidentally eat something with nuts. So our team is experts in kind of providing this concierge level service to ensure that, things are delivered on time, labeled appropriately, et cetera. And one of the interesting things as well as we start to do is pantry. So aside from meals, everyone has a fridge, everyone has a pantry that they need to stock. And our team really works hard to make sure if a company would like to stock their pantry with awesome snacks or drinks and things like that, we can definitely provide service there as well.
Okay. Are you saying any company can sign up for Foodpanda for Business?
Yes, you can. You can reach out to us at corporate. Yes, please reach out to us.
We have already signed up. It's not even. We have
my notebook here. Exactly. I can write down your details.
Okay, maybe Q&A or
we got some Q&A.
Yeah, I think there's a number of questions we want to make sure they get answered.
Oh man. Where are we? I'm gonna.
Will the thing end in 3 minutes?
That's okay.
I'm flying.
Let's see. I'm gonna stop the share here. Okay. Questions and answers. Oh, we have quite a few more.
There's a couple in the chat as well.
Yeah. So maybe if people have additional questions, they can ask the questions in the chat as well, and we'll try to answer as many as we can.
Okay. So Rebecca Wang, she asks, are there any smart analytical tools in the market and companies can use to measure employees' happiness? So I think that's actually what you're doing with Glint. But I like the second part of the question, which is, are there any interesting case studies or stories to share where we come from that data and we actually build something from that data and turn it into information? Any thoughts there?
So we actually, so internally for us at LinkedIn, right? So we actually look at the score. And when we look at the score, it's not like, hey, Melissa, your team's not feeling happy. You got to do something about it. Like everything else in the company, it's a collective effort. It's like, okay, why are we feeling connected? So we all sort of dive in and brainstorm, okay, what can we do to fix this thing together, right? That's one thing. Other stuff includes, if they feel disconnected, how do you coach your staff as managers? There are insights and actions. Go, well, maybe you can look at these articles, these forums, and here's some examples you can follow to fix the situation, or potentially brainstorm outlets of how we can get out of it. So there is action that comes from the surveys, but it's not from a generic report like this one. They're much more specific to the company, and that's much more to our customers, which I did not share too much of for Glenn. But there are actions that we recommend to our customers in the system.
Okay. Another question that I'm seeing here in the chat are, we've been talking a lot about kind of happiness in the workplace, but are there any habits outside of the workplace, maybe in your personal lives, that you think are important to maintain in order to be happy in the workplace? What do you think, Mel?
I'm a huge advocate of work-life balance.
Okay.
And again, I think I kind of touched on this in the beginning about my experience of super high finance, investment banking hours, to trying to build a startup, blood, sweat, and tears, to coming here where, everyone's trying to work together to build this incredible marketplace. And I just really am super passionate about, and I advocate this to my team all the time. It's everyone needs to take the time that they need to reset. I think, again, as we mentioned, especially with work from home, you can't really ever turn off. And so my team can also probably support what I'm saying here, but, really trying to, again, limit the messages that we're sending super late, simple things like that, limit the late emails that we're trying to send unless super urgent, because we really need to give each one of us the time to turn off, be with our family, not focus on work all the time, just so that you have that kind of balance and being able to turn off.
Okay. Any thoughts there, Ken?
I think particularly in a startup setting, right? Sometimes work life can be quite chaotic, to say the least, right? But I think for me, it's a little bit about what Melissa was saying, is just respecting other people, right? I think respecting their time and also, I would say, understanding their personality and their background and how they react. And so I think maybe giving them space is also important, because it's actually very easy in a startup where you see messages like way late in the night and they expect people like, immediate reaction, but people should have their own time.
Absolutely.
Right, in the first place. And then also I think, so in reaction to that, actually what I did was I actually turned off most of my notifications at night.
Okay.
So I know for me, like I have a horrible habit of actually merging my personal and my work life a lot. So I would be working extremely long hours, and for some reason I still survive, but that's actually really not healthy. So I actually started turning off all my notifications, and so that it's me, I check when I want and not when it's keep pinging me. It's a little bit slower, but actually I felt for me, I'm more productive that way. I might not respond immediately to some things, but I'm in a much better state than when it actually was pinging all the time. And actually I felt like, even for myself, like I felt quite anxious or agitated at times. And so that's been a big thing for me.
I think that's a really good example to your team as well, to see you.
Well, I'm actually not sure if they all do that, to be very honest, but I think it's one of those things where you want to do your best,
right?
But sometimes you also need to learn that whatever great opinion you have or doing your best that you have may not be what other people want. Like sometimes we try to do our best for our clients, and then we might have arguments or heated discussions. And then in the end result is actually at the user level or at the client level, they actually never cared about that. So even though I was very righteous and standing up and picking up a hissy fit, but at that point it's just also about letting go on some level. So I think particularly during COVID, keeping your boundaries clear and actually keeping yourself in a good state, I think for me is absolutely key.
Okay. Quick answer from Thomas, and then let's wrap up the session with maybe a 2-3 minute.
Sure. So for me, it's about being adaptable and flexible, like Ken said, understanding different backgrounds, communication, and really managing expectations.
Okay.
So managing expectations means managing downward, but also upward to your boss on what you think is okay and what's not okay. And then also two things that I really value lately, especially with all the health stuff recently, is sleep and exercise, which I think a lot of us forego to get ahead. But someone told me recently, there's always another thing to do on the to-do list. So you should just stop and then really turn off and
On the topic of managing expectations, man, you always exceed my expectations, man. You're a killer. All right. Just want to say thank you, everybody, for attending our session. As mentioned, as promised, the first 50 attendees who joined our room will get a Foodpanda voucher from us. So there it is. And also to wrap up, all of us have very interesting next step things that we want to share. Ron has a glint report. Ken can provide a link to his presentations, that sort of thing. We can talk a little bit more about Foodpanda for Business. So what's going to happen after the session is all of you are going to receive an email. And on that email is a link to our LinkedIn event page. On the LinkedIn event page, Ken is going to share his offering. Thomas is going to share his offering. Ron, Melissa, the same. And then we can keep in touch that way, okay? So you'll all receive an email from us, and then hope to keep in touch that way.
I think maybe one thing we can do, since there's quite a lot of questions, is maybe we can at least export the questions. What we can do is on the LinkedIn page, we'll answer everyone's questions, because there's like 300 people signed up on LinkedIn. So I think a lot of people likely signed up for this event. Probably afterwards, what we'll do is we'll try to re-edit this recording, or maybe just kind of make it more in digestible bites. And then we'll also post it back up on LinkedIn so people can rewatch it and then also directly answer some of these questions, hopefully.
Can we do one more thing? Let's just like pose for the camera real quick so we get like a nice shot of all of us. Health, wealth, and happiness. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Stay happy, healthy,
Thanks,
and wealthy.
everyone.
stay wealthy.
All right.
Stay wealthy. Get wealthy.